9-to-5 manufacturing facilities and all that.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on June 19th, 2023. It is time to call the City Council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Deacon?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Nally?
Here.
Ms. Price? Mr. Prime?
Here.
Mr. Tate? Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, prayer and pledge, please.
All right, I invite you to join me. Our Father, we come to you this evening, and we just thank you for yesterday where we celebrated fathers, and I thank you for all the good fathers in our lives and the privilege it is to be one. I pray that we'd all grow and become better ones day by day. Thank you for today, the holiday when many celebrate the deepest recesses of our country, finally experiencing the freedom from bondage. And we thank you so much for that. And as we meet in this hall today, I pray for all the items on the agenda. I pray that the decisions to be considered and made would be made with wisdom and discernment. And thank you for all those who serve on this council. And thank you again for our first responders as we swear a new one in, to our police department. Bless him, bless his family, give him safety as he serves and protects us. Bless this evening, we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, Brian. Under the announcements and public comments, we are going to be swearing in a police officer tonight, Mr. Daniel Collins, so we'll do that now.
Step away on this one.
I, Daniel Collins,
I, Daniel Collins,
a member of the Franklin, Indiana Police Department,
a member of the Franklin, Indiana Police Department,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully discharge all of my official duties.
and that I will faithfully discharge all of my official duties.
Congratulations.
Thank you
sir.
very much.
We got promotions in the Army, right? Sergeant, making sure of that. Of course, I didn't read the sergeant's stripes very high. It happens. It does. I never got my butterfly. I was only 9 months away from it.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
So what are we going to do about Hinkle?
it's like a bad penny. Get him, Steve.
I'm not going there, okay? Yeah.
He said, give him a run.
We'll give a couple minutes here for the, you guys are welcome to stay. It's some good stuff.
Fine young man.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah. Told me, he said he has his SLP, like, he's crazy intelligent.
Is there any other announcements or public comment that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will close the announcements and public comment. Moves us to consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda, the meeting minutes, June 5th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will go to old business.
Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. This is also a public hearing tonight. All three of these items are related, so I'm going to read all three at the same time, and then Mrs. Tennell here will lead us in the right direction. Item number one, approval of ordinance 2023-05, annexation to be known as the Dunn and Snep annexation, 240 acres. Public hearing tonight, and approval of resolution 2023-12 fiscal plan. The next item, item number two, approval of ordinance 2023-06, rezoning to be known as Dunn rezoning, 80 acres. Public hearing is tonight. Number three, item number three, approval of ordinance 2023-07, rezoning to be known as SNEP rezoning, 160 acres, also public hearing. And as I said, Senior Planner Joanna Tennell will take over. Thank you.
Good evening. Before you this evening are the three ordinances and then also resolution for the fiscal plan. On May 16th, 2023, Plan Commission heard the three requests, which is an annexation of 240 acres located northeast of the intersection of Earlywood Drive and RJ Parkway. Included in that this evening is the public hearing regarding the annexation, plus you do have the resolution that outlines the fiscal plan. The fiscal plan would be the only item that is up for official action this evening. It is divided into two separate rezoning requests. The western 80 acres is the Dunn property. They're requesting that the property be zoned industrial general. And the eastern 160 acres, which is the SNEP property, they are requesting that the property be annexed and rezoned to agriculture. The Plan Commission forwarded a favorable recommendation for annexation by a 9-0 vote. It was introduced at the June 5th meeting. The Dunn rezoning request was forwarded by the Plan Commission with an unfavorable recommendation for the industrial general zoning district by a 7-2 vote. And the SNEP rezoning was forwarded by the Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation for the zoning to be agriculture by a 9-0 vote. Just to go over some of the differences between this request versus ones that we've had before the council before. As of January 1st of 2023, the city of Franklin no longer has jurisdiction in what we know as the buffer zone. So previously, when a property came before you, in most cases, the property was already in our buffer zone and had a zoning district associated with it. So in some cases, annexations would come before you with no request for a rezoning because it already had a zoning district that we had jurisdiction over. Since there is no buffer zone, in every case when an annexation is brought before the council, there will be a rezoning request to come along with it. It could be any of the zoning districts. If there is not a request, or if one is not adopted by the council, but it is annexed, the default zoning is agriculture. Just so wanted to kind of do a brief review of that since we do have a little bit different from that buffer zone. Here this evening is Larry Jesse with the petitioner, and he can give a presentation.
Do I need to be sworn in, Mr. Mayor?
You don't need to be sworn in. I just state your name and what you.
Larry, I'm sorry. Just to be consistent, though, you have 20 minutes, and then it'd be 20 minutes for anybody who wants to speak against as well.
Okay. Well, I guarantee you I'll be shorter than 20 minutes. For the record, then, my name is Larry Jesse, attorney here in Franklin, Indiana, with my address at 1010 West Jefferson Street. On these two requests that's before the council this evening, I have the privilege of representing both the Dunn family and the SNEP family. With me this evening is Mr. Bill Dunn, who may or may not make any comments on these requests. On these requests, I'm going to kind of talk about both the Dunn and the SNEP property together, and certainly if you have any questions on either one of them, I'd be glad to address those. On the Dunn property, we feel like it has addressed all the criteria that's in your zoning ordinance, and especially for the rezoning, that all of you can look at the map and see readily that on the Dunn property, I'll address specifically on the annexation. Of course, we do want it annexed into the city with the development that's in that area of the city. Secondly, it's apparent, I guess, immediately to the west of that property is already a zoning of the industrial general, which this would be complementary to your zoning, your comprehensive zoning. With that IG, I think most of you anecdotally would know that, or would probably feel that it wouldn't depreciate or devalue that property whatsoever. It would certainly, we would think, increase the value of that property based on that corridor. In addition to the use that's made of the property to the south, you can see there's varied uses, but there's certainly industrial-type businesses adjacent to it across the road, with the adjacent property to the west being IG. And I will call it the Yarnell property, which is down to the southwest, is IG also, which is currently being developed. So it's kind of redundant, but all of those criteria for the Dunn property are consistent with that area. They're consistent with your zoning ordinance, and feel like that is where the city is at least suggesting their growth would occur in that type of a zoning. Now, as to the SNEP property, which is a larger property, the 160 acres, right now, currently, there's a zoning of an R district and an A district, but our request for the rezoning that was sent to you is on the SNEP property, the 160 acres, is that it would come in as agriculture. That's what it's currently being used for. There is no specific developer or intent on either property of what it's going to be used for. Certainly on the SNEP property to the east, that you'll see to the north of it, to the east of it, it's an ag zoning on those also at this point in time. So without any further comment, I mean, there's not a whole lot more I can say about it, and it's certainly a nice addition, I think, to the city to get this 240 acres. As a side note, I will say that we've already addressed the issue with Needham Fire District, and there's a resolution to release it to the city if it is annexed and also rezoned. So with that, I don't have anything, and I guess question period will be later. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, next, is there anyone that wants to speak against the annexation? Yes, ma'am. No.
I'll be brief, I promise. And I have a handout that I can give you all afterwards, maybe, just to save time. My name's Jill Bevins. I'm a resident on 300 North, so I live, I'm glad the map's still up, I live basically across the street from the SNEP property, and I have several concerns, but my primary concerns have to do with the safety and the infrastructure on 300 North, which I'm sure you guys probably know, but you can see from the map, Earlywood, T's, or whatever, four-way stop at Graham, and then you move a little bit east to RJ Parkway. That currently is in city geography, and so that stretch of road is decent. But then as you move east of RJ Parkway down to the four-way stop at Hurricane and 300, the road is narrow. There are a bunch of pavement failures. There's no shoulder. The lane width doesn't meet federal highway guidelines for semi-traffic, and even though that is not a designated semi-route currently, there is a lot of semi-traffic on 300 on a regular basis. Obviously, I live there. I work from home now, and so in my office, I can see 300. There's regular heavy truck traffic on that road, and not surprisingly, in just the year and a half that I've lived there, we've had 2 semi-accidents, single semi-accidents. So they've just semi-wheel off the road, here they come. Both of them have happened directly across the street from these 2 properties, and both of those semi-accidents have come across my property and my neighbor's properties, the ends of our driveways have taken out multiple utility poles, destroyed mailboxes. The second accident was the more serious of the two, totaled the semi, had the road closed for several hours, and my neighbor's son, who was sitting at the end of their driveway in his car, luckily was able to reverse quickly, or the semi would have come over the top of his car. So speaking as somebody who lives there, from a public safety standpoint, there are real concerns with semi-traffic on 300, and I understand it isn't inherent in this proposal that there absolutely would be semi-traffic on 300, but based upon the traffic that's already happening, I think it's a legitimate concern to think about rezoning the Dunn property, particularly if there isn't, there isn't a buyer, there isn't a developer, there isn't a project, being proposed currently. I know it benefits the city to annex the properties, but perhaps annexing without a zoning change at this point until there's more clarity, I guess, with what's going to happen with the infrastructure of 300 and for the public safety concern. The only other thing that I would just throw out there is that I'm sure the council is aware, the two new neighborhoods that will be developed on Hurricane just south of 300, one on the west side of Hurricane, one on the east side, several hundred homes, I believe, will invariably increase school bus traffic, personal vehicle traffic, and I would imagine a lot of those residents will use 300 as a corridor into schools, grocery, all of those things. And so I think really considering how 300 is going to be used moving forward and the limitations the road has right now are important things to consider, I think, for the safety of the people that live on that road and have to use that road every day. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? There's plenty of time.
This is in favor.
Okay, is there anybody else who wants to speak against? Hearing none, you want to speak in favor? Go ahead, Mr. Dunn.
Yes, our property is currently listed for sale. There
Excuse me,
is no
sir.
developer yet.
Can you please state your full name for the
It's
record?
William Joseph Dunn.
Thank you.
My father's one that owns the property, Hugh Dunn. It is currently listed for sale. There is no developer at this time. But my understanding from our realtor, the way with what's been going on with some of these regional bank failures, if it is not zoned correctly, it's going to be harder to sell as for a business. They're just speculative buyers aren't out there right now. And on the truck traffic, you've got a grain elevator over on Hurricane Road. You've had a lot of fall truck traffic, been there for years. So that's not going to change that at all. And the truck traffic you're getting now is because of warehouses that have gone in over on the east side of town. I followed one a couple weeks ago, followed a truck down that way because my dad is living out at Morning Point. I work at Caterpillar there just on northeast side, or north side there, and I drove around that way past the farm, and I followed a truck down there. It was an LTL truck. It was, I don't remember what the company was now, but I know it was an LTL. They're going to have those no matter what because your business is down there on the east side. So I don't see our development our ground coming in as industrial general is really going to increase that truck traffic on 300 that much, if at all, because you already got the truck traffic there. The majority, if it's truckloads, they're going to come in off Whiteland because that's where your main, and I think there's works to put a roundabout there at Graham Road and Earlywood and make that a truck route. So that truck route will redo a lot of that too when that gets done. And I know NDOT's talking of exchange there at 365, maybe 10 years down the road, but what's that going to do to your traffic? So we just feel that with the ground that around it, the industrial general will be best zoning for our property and it'll help it sell better.
Anybody else in favor of? Okay, so we will close the public hearing and open up questions. The council have any questions for Mr. Jesse or Joanna?
I've got a question here. Joanna, can you explain to us what is in the general industrial zoning? Or what could be possibly put in that?
It's one of our industrial zoning districts. I thought I had it attached here, but it includes manufacturing, warehouses, distribution, mainly the majority of what you would consider as industrial. Sorry, I'm not locating that. To give you a specific list.
Okay.
It's manufacturing, distribution, research and development, basically the majority of your industrial
Okay.
uses. I apologize for not having that list in the
You're fine.
packet. I thought I had it in there.
And Joanna, if someone wanted to put a trucking company, they would have to get a special exception to do that, correct?
So in the city of Franklin, there is no zoning district that a trucking company or a truck freight terminal is a use by right. It is a special exception in the industrial light zoning district or the industrial general zoning district. So that is one use that would have oversight of the Board of Zoning Appeals to look at the specific property, the specific project, see what their location is, what the roads are, the capacity, how many trucks, timing, hours, and all of that, so.
So a trucking company and a warehouse terminal is not the same. So just so to clarify that just a little bit, and if I'm getting too deep in the weeds here, trucking companies are a sore spot with me. So the warehousing stuff, they have the trucks are scheduled in a certain time. A truck driver comes, picks up a trailer, and he leaves. Well, the trucking companies I'm talking about, they have the trucks are stored there, they work on their trucks, and basically it's not a pretty sight. So that is why we go for special exceptions whenever that happens. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, in that regard, there's essentially kind of three different levels. You have your trucking companies, which the mayor was talking about, of just the trucks and trailers come in and out without materials or product. Then you have your truck freight terminals, essentially is when they will bring one truck in one side, transfer it to a truck on the other side, and just take that freight between truck to truck internal to the site, and then go from there. And then you have your warehouse distribution, which obviously has a lot of truck traffic, but the majority of the building is used for actually storing the materials and then putting them on the trailers to be distributed. So there's kind of a three-tier system. So that last one is an approved use in our industrial general zoning district.
So is it fair to say this net property is just holding on to this as zoned as agricultural for later use and later sell?
My conversation,
That's correct.
yep, with the petitioner is because there is no proposed project, it just makes more sense to bring it in as agriculture, and then as a proposed project comes in, they would request the appropriate zoning district to come before Plan Commission and City Council, correct?
And the only clarification to that is that on this net property, they're currently under the old zoning or the county zoning, there is an R district on it, but we're rezoning the whole 160, if you approve it, to A, so there won't be any R anymore.
Right.
The other thing I did need to mention about the annexation, in the ordinance itself, Indiana code allows that there be a delay in when the property is assessed, City of Franklin taxes, that as long as it is zoned, or not zoned, as long as it is assessed for property taxes as agriculture, that it remains in the same taxing district. So the taxes for the city of Franklin would take effect at the time that the property is then developed and that classification is changed. We've done that on a number of other properties, the Kelsey property to be one as an example. So that is noted in number 2 on the annexation ordinance.
I'd also like to add, so I did meet with Jill, and I appreciated our coffee, Jill, it was good. And I told Jill some stuff that she did not know about, I don't believe she knew about. The Graham Road extension, that's going to happen this year. And then the roundabout was brought up at Earlywood and Graham. That is going to be next year. There's also going to be a roundabout at Paulhan and Graham. And that's talking with commissioners and people from Whiteland. We anticipate that's probably going to be the truck route to Whiteland is for that area. Is if you were a trucker, which way are you going to go? You're going to go to the closest interchange, which is Whiteland. So that's probably where that's going to go in that area. The Yarnell property is, it's looking like it's going to be developed this year. I know that, Mr. Jesse, do you represent Yarnell as well? I thought so. The Cold Summit folks are working on that property. And that's what's driving all the other stuff that we're doing for the road improvements. And then also at RJ Parkway, where the road is fairly good, that's city there, and the road that that Ms. Bevins is talking about is under county jurisdiction. And as long as the county has that, I can't see them making it the way that the city's done that part. So the roads get taken care of when the annexations happen. And then if the developer comes along, they actually do more work to the road by putting in the turn lanes and all that at a later date. But I would anticipate the city, if we do annex this, would, in the next year to 2 years, that would be, it would look like the rest of Earlywood up to where the city limits ends. So just wanted to clarify that.
That was going to be one of my questions specifically. So Bill, Mr. Dunn, specifically zoning this for agriculture initially is not what you're asking or wanting, obviously. You want it to go in industrial general out of the gate.
Yes, our realtor feels it'll sell better that way, because like you said, the speculative real estate market has just died with these regional bank failures that have happened. So he says it's where they're gonna wanna go in and something that's already zoned, ready to go. So that's my understanding from him. I don't know real estate. That's just what he's told us, what he's told us.
Thank you.
I'm not aware, and I'm not disputing what Bill's saying, I'm not aware of any regional bank failures. I think there was one in California and one in New York. I'm not aware of anything regional, but
Joanna, what's the process if there is a developer down the road that comes in and says, hey, I want to build this here, but it's agriculture, we want to switch it until industrial general? What is the time frame to usually get that done?
So typically, if a request comes in, filing deadline would be on a Thursday. The technical review committee would hear it 2 weeks after that. Then it would go to Plan Commission a month after that, roughly 3 weeks. It would be before City Council for introduction, and 2 weeks after that would be a public hearing. Because rezonings technically only take 2 hearings at City Council. The only reason that these get pushed off to 3 is because annexation requires 3. So what's that? 3 months, 3.5 months?
Mayor, when we rezoned the Yarnell property, we pretty much had a good idea what was going in there, what was planned, is that correct?
That property did not have a proposed use at the time it was
Okay.
rezoned.
So we rezoned it without really knowing what was
Correct.
going in? Okay, thank you.
Was it also zoned as an IG too, or no?
It was,
Do we know?
it was originally zoned industrial business development, and they requested a rezoning to industrial light.
And if we wanted to ask questions prior to the vote, whenever that comes up at the next meeting, we have the ability to do that?
I think the council can have the ability to
Okay,
do that.
all right.
Yes.
And I just want to ask, is the industrial light the same as the IG or no? Or is it, Like the same comparison?
Industrial goes industrial business development as the lowest. Industrial light is your medium, and industrial general
Okay,
is the
okay.
higher. So typically, industrial general properties are larger acreages. For example, the, Yarnell property is not 80 acres, which
Yeah.
is why it's zoned industrial light.
Anybody else? Okay, going once, going twice. Public hearings closed. Thank you, Joanna. Oh, we do have something else, sorry. You were looking at me, I caught on to that.
So we do have the fiscal plan that is before you. It's included in the packet. It includes information regarding how these parcels are divided between ownership, their individual acreages, and their assessed value as of 2023. It discusses how the city of Franklin provides services, which services would take effect immediately. So upon annexation, all of your, your soft services are immediate: fire protection, police protection, planning, park board, all of that. In regard to extension of capital improvements of sanitary sewer, it is in line with how we would do any other development. And that would be as a project is brought forward. Typically, they would be responsible for extending that sanitary sewer. So we are not under any obligation of extending sanitary sewer to the property within a certain time frame, just as long as we do it consistent with how we do other developments that are currently in the city. So this fiscal plan is before you. It is required by Indiana code to be adopted prior to annexation. Just because a fiscal plan is adopted does not mean that the annexation has to be approved at the next meeting. But it cannot be approved if the fiscal plan has not been adopted. So that is the one thing before you this evening that does need official action. And the resolution is Resolution 2023-12.
Okay, so we need a motion for Resolution 2023-12.
I'll move for its adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Irene seemed a little bit louder there with the second, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Joanna.
The only other thing is they need official action to table ordinance 2023-06 and 2023-07 for official action at the next meeting on July 5th.
So moved.
Good.
Second.
You also need
Josh.
the 2305 on that too?
No,
It doesn't? Okay.
no, because that one is already targeted
I got
to be
you.
on that meeting. Mhm.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Josh Prine. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Joanna. Okay, next item is under new business.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Item number 1, appropriate funds received from the Franklin Union Needham Township to purchase AEDs, Police Chief Kirby Cochran, and this is also introduction tonight.
Yep, thank you, Mayor, thank you, council. As the mayor said, this is introduction only, but we received $15,000 donation from the Franklin Union Township Trustee's Office to purchase some AED devices for police cars. So we're just going to be asking to appropriate those funds.
Is there any questions for the chief? Thank you, sir. It's introduced. Okay, next item is also for introduction. request to amend the Common Council Ordinance 22-18 budgetary ordinance fixing and authorizing the payment of certain salaries of appointed officers and employees for the year 2023 Civil City to add a full-time recreation/events coordinator for the Parks and Recreation Department, Director of Parks and Recreation Chip Arner.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. The request tonight is something that's actually been in the works for probably a year now. Don't need to give you the history, but I'll give you the history for everybody else in the room. We obviously opened up the Youngs Creek Amphitheater last year. Couldn't have went any better than it did. It was obviously great. This is year 2 of the amphitheater, and we knew this last year, but we tried to wait as long as we could, and here we are. We just need more help. And what we're proposing is that that you would allow us to hire a recreation and event coordinator that would actually oversee a lot of what goes on at the amphitheater. It's not just that, though. It's other community events that we have. One of the things that has made the amphitheater successful to this point so far is sponsorships. We would like to expand on that. One of the things I need is somebody that can dedicate more time to that. Bless Holly's heart. We all know who Holly is. She has done an admirable job of trying to juggle 50 things in the air at a time. But I also have to be realistic, and that's not sustainable. She needs help doing that. You probably could care less about things about in the weeds. But one of the things we're doing is we're getting ready to switch recreation management software. Some of you probably have no idea when I say RecTrack what that is, but Drew probably does. It's the management software that we use in the department for online registration and all that other stuff. We currently pay what I would describe as an unseen amount of money for that, or unheard of. We pay roughly $40,000 a year. To give you an example, I wanted to add online registration back to that because we got rid of it during COVID. It's an additional $15,000 just to do that. I found an equivalent to that, which is called myrec.com, for $11,000 total, and it includes everything. You could care less about that. What I care about is I need an administrator to oversee that. It's something new. This person would also oversee that. And then the final thing, you could probably care less about too. Typically, in historical years, 3 years ago, we were making $60,000 a year in concessions, the food and beverage part. We're on track to make $170 this year. The reason I bring that up is because that's where Holly's spending the majority of her time at, not where she should be managing recreation programs and that stuff. She's trying to staff a concession stand that is making crazy money at the moment. It's something we need to do. I just need somebody to oversee that is not one of my top people, if that makes any sense to you. I tell you all that because you're interested in this part. You want to know how in the heck are we going to fund that? Because the one thing I'm not going to do is come mid-year and ask you to, hey, can you give us more money from taxpayers? It's not what we're in the business of doing. However, we are unique in the parks business, and we are one of the few departments that raises our own revenue. We can do that several ways. One of the asks that I'm going to ask you today is to switch how we pay somebody, so I'm able to pay for this recreation and event coordinator, and not from taxpayer money. So we currently have an aquatics director that oversees all of our aquatics programs in the Family Aquatic Center, and that is paid for out of taxpayer budget, okay, if that helps. I want to move that position into the Athens Rec Fund, which is now the pool revenue will pay for the aquatics director, which makes more sense. The opening, then, I want to pay this recreation and event coordinator out of that position. Then, does that make sense? Have I lost anybody yet? This can get confusing, I know. So all I'm asking you to do is flip how we pay somebody. So it's currently, like I said, that aquatics director job is currently in our budget. I want to move it to Athens Rec, so the money that the pool is making will actually pay for the aquatics director. You probably don't know what an aquatics director does. I put that on here so you could see. We have a fairly large aquatics program actually in Franklin because we're able to use the school facilities during the winter time as well. The Family Aquatic Center has gotten to be a fairly large operation for us. It used to be $180,000 revenue. It's now a $450,000 revenue facility. So it's become a big chunk of what we do. It requires somebody full-time to oversee it. The problem with that is that an aquatics director is extremely, extremely hard to find, because the amount of certifications you have to have from the state to oversee a swimming pool, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you own a swimming pool in your backyard, but it makes a lot of sense if you're having 100,000 people go through one. It requires a lot of certifications. It's hard to find somebody. The last time I had to find an aquatics director, it took me 2 years to find somebody that was even qualified to do it. I finally found somebody that's qualified and is willing to do this job. I'm currently doing the job because you have to be a certified pool operator by the state. I'm the only one. So this opens up that opportunity for us to be able to plug somebody into that is perfect for this job. There again, I want to pay for it at a revenue that we already get. You should see the numbers. I always want to show you the numbers because really that's what you're concerned about. Currently, it costs us about $75,000 a year, and that includes, you probably rarely see this graphic. What you normally see is the top line of it. You see what somebody make salary-wise. I have it broken down into what it costs per benefits, retirement. We're required to pay FICA and Medicare and all those things. So really, it costs us $75,000 for pretty much any position that we have. That's the baseline position that we have. If you allow us to do that, this person will start in July. That's what it would cost us this year, is the $37,000 number, and then you see what it would cost us next year. All those numbers would come out of revenue that we make from the pool. Does that make sense? The other thing I should make you aware of, because it's getting ready to be budget time, what we have tried to do over the years as the Aquatic Center has gotten more popular and more used, we have slowly been transitioning how we fund the Aquatic Center. But when I started 17 years ago, it was 100% paid by taxpayers. Everything came out of the budget, and that's how it was all paid. We have slowly, over the years, as this has become more popular, changed how we do that. And more of it's coming out of the Athens Rec Fund, because as we make more revenue, I want the revenue to be able to pay for it and not the taxpayer to pay for it, if that makes sense. I was just joking outside. My goal before I retire is to be able to stand in front of you and say that the taxpayer didn't pay a penny for the Aquatic Center, that the user paid for it. Not saying I'm asking for a budget reduction, because that's not what I'm in the business of doing. What we have done over the years is our budget in 200 and 300 has been fairly consistent. And how we've been able to do that is I'm taking more and more pool expenses out of the Athens Rec Fund, if that makes sense. So typically, as we sit here today, I've taken already 50% of what the pool chemical costs are out of the user fees and not out of the tax base. That's allowed us to do things at the amphitheater, for example. So instead of me going and say, oh, Mayor, I need a $50,000 budget increase, I'm only asking for 5 because I can cover the 45 someplace else, if that makes sense. Have I confused you enough?
Not at all.
The moral of the story is I'm here today because things are so successful that we're now trying to pay for it a different way, if that makes sense.
So I can tell you, Chip was sweating to come today. Did pretty good.
I was sweating.
Yeah.
I also want to be very transparent, because I was very transparent with the mayor. Very rarely do I make a mistake, especially when it comes to numbers. But I did make one on this one. I was very transparent with the mayor. If you'll flip back to that, Joanna, real quick, to that last page about the numbers. It took me 6 months to find somebody. I told this person this salary was $49,500, and here's the mistake I made that I'm being transparent to you about. The position actually pays $47,500. However, the mayor has allowed me to ask you if I could pay that person $49,500 this year, and then they get a lesser raise next year compared to everybody else. Does that make sense? So my scenario on here is that, let's say that in theory that everybody gets a $3,000 raise next year. This person would only get a $1,000 raise because I've already upped it 2. Does that make sense? The last thing I want to do is go back to this person that I've negotiated with for 6 months to convince to take this job that I screwed it up. That's me being transparent.
You know, the one big benefit that we have that gets lost in the shuffle is that $17,500 a year our insurance is worth. And I wish our
Absolutely.
employees would realize that a little bit more. That gets lost, especially with the younger folks. So we got a great insurance package.
Yeah, that was actually what won this person over, that is willing to accept this job, is that, I think I told it at this department head meeting today, this person is currently a teacher that's getting out of education that pays roughly $480 per pay for insurance currently, and I believe our family insurance is $23. So
Hey, yeah.
Don't say that out loud.
it's a selling point, though.
Okay. Any questions for Chip?
Please ask me any questions if you have any.
I know how hard it is to find aquatics directors.
It is
So,
tough.
You know, meeting with scouts and we have camps and everything, and every year
Steve.
we have tons of problems finding that. So, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, they're really hard to find because it's so many certifications you have to go through and then maintain at that, so.
Bond payments, is there still a bond outstanding on that?
Yeah, it's still.
So funds that, did they pay for it?
No.
They covered, okay, so.
Yeah. So Bob just asked a question here. Bob, go ahead and ask that again.
Ask away.
Well, I mean, I should know the answer, that's why I don't want to ask the question. I mean, I see the budgets and so forth. There's still a bond issue outstanding on that renovation of that.
There
pool.
is.
How many more years is left on that?
2, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's winding
And
down.
Yeah, it's almost at the end.
Is any of your revenue, does any of that go toward, okay, that's all city
It does
thing.
not. No, it has a dedicated tax. I believe it's a tax rate just for the park bond.
Okay, so then in 2 years, we'll be looking at maybe any upgrades or things like that at that time.
That's
then.
correct. Yeah.
Was that a 20-year bond?
I think it was 15.
It's been pretty successful, though, the upgrades that were done on that pool.
Yeah.
I mean, I go by there every day, and it's like, I mean,
Full
people,
house.
yeah, it's a full house.
Yeah, I anticipate in 2 years from now, we're going to need to do a little bit what we did this 15 years ago is we're going to need to do some improvements at the pool because you got to remember it is still, we've done a great job of putting lipstick on it because it is a 1985 pool. Let's remember that. And then the recreation center by that time will now be 26 years old by then, and it needs some renovation work too.
I'm old enough to remember when your music system was a speaker on top of a pole.
We just anchored it a little bit better now.
Yeah.
And added a few. So.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, there isn't any other business, so we'll go right into council members' comments. Irene, I'll start with you tonight.
I don't have any tonight, sir.
Bob?
No comments, thank you.
Ken?
I don't have anything, Mayor. Thank you.
Ann?
No, nothing, thank you.
Josh?
Well, the FTC had done a tremendous job on that house on Hurricane Street. I've come by it and looked at it and, yeah, blown away on the work that they did with it and everything. And really making that area look really nice, so.
Thank you. Not thank you for me, I didn't do it, they did it, but thank you for the comments. So, FTC does a good job with that. Mr. Ayers?
I don't have anything except for the fact, thank you for having me back. It was a pleasure sitting in for Lynn, and while I'm on this side of you, I don't know, the right side feels pretty good.
He used to, when he was city council, he used to sit right here, so that's why he said that. Jane, you have anything? Okay, with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.